Happy Spiritual Sunday. Thank you. A happy day. That's what we want to have, yes? You know, we want to keep in mind, I know every week we're going to keep affirming consciousness is everything, but I also want to remind you, consciousness is infectious. That's what's so important. Why do we constantly believe? And this is why we've got to constantly battle it. People tend to think that sickness and negativity, etc., is contagious, right? If a person's not feeling well, what's the first thing that they say to you as you approach them? Don't come close, I'm sick. Well, why should we wait for people to be sick? Let's approach people and say, look, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm spiritual, I got all this good energy. Let me infect you with that. Isn't that great? What would happen if we could infect 3.5 billion people today with happiness and joy and an understanding of the light of the Creator inside them? Then they could infect the other 3 billion people and we'd see heaven on earth. Is that such a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Okay, good. I want that nice response. Is it a good thing? Yes, exactly. So that's what we want to do. We want to infect the world with the light of the Creator, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's get started as we do every Sunday. We're going to start with our affirmation because it's, again, awakening consciousness and raising our consciousness every day better and better. How many of you go to work during the week? How many of you are looking for a better day today than yesterday? And a better day tomorrow after that? Exactly. Why? How come where you are now is not enough? Aha. See, I can already hear the fight. Some of you who are still thinking that way, remember, we have that resistance in our own head. Well, I don't want to say it's supposed to be so much better. I'll sound like an egotistical maniac. It's okay. We are egotistical maniacs. We are. But it's the ego of the light. It's the ego of the Creator. That's the ego we want to have. How many of, in other words, why am I going here? But anyway, this whole teaching that we talk about, what's it called? Kabbalah. What does the word Kabbalah mean? To receive. So then the wisdom of Kabbalah is not teaching us how not to receive, it's teaching us how to receive. But the issue is, what are we receiving? And that's what we're here to shift. Here we want to receive the manifestation of all of God's blessings that He put inside of us already. That's what every Sunday is about. That's what all the teachings of Kabbalah about. That's what all the centers about. How every person can live into their 100% so that we can see peace in heaven on earth. Isn't that what we all want? All we have to do is keep believing it. That's the issue. So every week we're out there in a battle in the outside world, where we are shown in many ways, it doesn't look like we'd see peace on earth. I mean, look at all the chaos going on. Look at all the difficulties, etc. But as I was just sharing with the people before, because I always give a couple minutes to the people who are on Facebook with us, that the fact that so many people out there are so reactive, they're just, as I called them, the knee-jerk responders, that's our advantage. You and I have the capability of causing them to be a knee-jerk responder to the light of the Creator, as we'll discuss today. So before we get into that, if I can ask you to join me in our affirmation. Consciousness is everything. I raise my consciousness today to see the miracles and wonders of life. I commit myself to behave with greater love, compassion, and kindness towards all human beings. And to prove that we mean that, we're going to stand up and hug each other. All right, here we go. Before I forget, I get so excited I tend to forget, because all it looks like here is a camera. But through this camera here, we have hundreds of people who are watching us today, literally from all over the world. And I know I keep saying it because it's just, for me, constantly amazing that we can sit here in Boca Raton and we can be reaching people all around the world simultaneously. It's not like they have to watch a recording, although they can also, but they're right here watching us from all over the world. And that's why every week we want to make sure that we greet them and thank them for joining us. So let's let them hear you. Okay. All right. So let me start with a joke. I'll give another try. Okay, what can I do? So there's this man, and he always attends his place of worship, so, he's like a religious person. So one day he's mountain climbing, and he's climbing and climbing, and he's, reaching one handhold to another, and suddenly he slips. And as he's falling, he's rolling down, God, help, 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 help. And just as he's about to go off the cliff, he reaches his hand out, and his hand reaches the roots of a tree that have grown out of the side of the mountain. So now he's looking down, and he sees it's about a 5,000-foot drop, and he's looking up at the sky. He says, God, help me. I've been so religious. I pray all the time, etc., etc. Help me, God. And a big booming voice comes out of the heavens. Let go, and I will catch you. He looks down, he looks around, he looks up. He's, hello, is there anyone else out there? Okay. So, God, that's what I wanted to talk about today, actually. Probably the most important figure, figuratively, in history, but also the most controversial. I mean, if you think about it, everything revolves around God one way or another, for good or for bad. For good or for bad, but God is involved in everything. I mean, if you think about it, even people who are atheists, what do they say? They don't believe in God. So it's still about God, one way or another. But God is also controversial, he said, but also confusing. There are people out there who say, like the atheist, I'm not sure God exists. Why do people say those things? Why are people confused about God? Because we've put so much out there about what God is and who God is and how God is, etc. And then we all look around and we say, well, how can God let this and that happen? How can God let all the tragedies happen? But then we say, oh, thank God when good things happen. Right? Good things happen to us, thank you, God. Bad things happen, why? And it becomes confusing. So it almost comes to the point where, like an atheist, maybe it's easier just not to believe. And then comes the old saying, there are no atheists in a foxhole. Right? When we get in trouble, where do we go right back to? God, God, God. So I wanted to get into a little bit of this idea of God. What is God Kabbalistically? How is it impacting us? And what is it to us, really? So as the Kabbalists teach us, and many of you have already taken Kabbalah 1, so you understand the idea. What happens in the upper worlds, what we call the endless world, is the pattern for everything in this world. Right? The same way that this building was not just built by a contractor by throwing together a bunch of pieces of construction material in any which way. What came first? The building of the building, meaning the putting together of the physical pieces, or the blueprint? The blueprint. But when you have the blueprint, do you have the building? So when this was empty ground, but we had the blueprints, did you see the building? No, but if you saw the blueprint, you could get a sense of there was supposed to be a building, what it was going to look like, etc., etc. But there was still no building. So they say, as above, so below, but also as below, so above. So we can look at this building. Do any of us doubt there was a blueprint to this building? Some of you? Right? Of course we know there was a blueprint. Then the same way, what we see in the physical world has to be based on spiritual principles. So let's think of your cell phone, since everybody today has a cell phone. Okay, I won't use names. Let's just do it this way. If a person doesn't have a certain cell phone provider, whichever one you want to pick, right? The one that's not yours. So let me ask you then, that network that's not yours exists out there, and just conceptually exists all around the world. So there are some people in the world who, because they've accessed, by paying their bills, getting the phone, connecting themselves in, they have access to that network, and they can make phone calls to people all over the world, right? But to you, who did not access that network, you don't pay for that service, your phone is not connected to that service, then from your point of view, that worldwide provider, that worldwide network, Doesn't exist. Right? To you, whatever cell phone provider you don't use, relative to you, doesn't exist to you. Why? Because it doesn't exist out there? Or because you're not tapped into it? So then the same way, we learn from the Kabbalists that the Creator is infinite goodness. Omnipotent, all-powerful, omnipresent, everywhere existing, and only good. Only good. So why is it that people then can have their different perspectives? You know, one day God is punishing, one day God is rewarding. One day they look at God and they see, like a grandfatherly figure with a big long beard sitting on a throne, kind of looking over the world. And then they see the opposite. They see a mean person up there throwing challenges down on people and causing people problem. Why is it like that? Because in general, we don't learn how to tap into that infinite power. And therefore, just like, if you think of it this way, you ever had like a loose connection in a radio or sometimes even in your cell phone headphones or something? It's a little loose, so it kind of goes in and out. It goes in and out, goes in and out. You can hear, then you can't hear. It's static, then it's not. So think of the same way. If we don't understand how to truly access or tap into this infinite power, then we're going to have a connection like that. And people all around the world doing the same thing. So they'll have it looks good, then it's bad, then it's okay, then it's not. And we'll have this quandary. Why is it this way? Why is it good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people? And it goes on and on and on. Not because God changes, and not because the power of God changes, but because we haven't understood how to access that power completely. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I first got my first cell phone, what do I know? I know how the old phones work. You pick it up, you dial, and you talk, right? Well, that was great when I could find the power button. I mean, let's be honest. Okay, I'll be honest. Sometimes I look at some of these phones when they were first new. I'd never seen them before. And I had to look, how do you find the power button? And sometimes when I've gone on trips, international trips, before I got the service that would be international on my phone, you rent a phone, and it's a phone that you're not familiar with. And they have different buttons for the on. One, it's on the side. One, it's like one of the number buttons, but you got to hold it long to go on, hold it long to go off, things like that. So if I don't know how to turn it on, then of course I'm not going to have access to the network. So now we go, but Chaim, because I hear people, not you, I hear the people on Facebook. I hear their thoughts. But Chaim, isn't that what religion is about? Isn't that how religion came about? Religion is to teach us how God works, how God operates, how to understand God's laws and things like that. No, that's not the real point. Think of the word religion.